An easy spring pattern for you to go catch a lot of fish and big fish this spring is by throwing a swim bait. Today on Bass Fishing Declassified, we're gonna have members from our team talk about retrieves, areas, and what swim baits to throw. Stay tuned, this is gonna be a good one.
Today's video, I'm gonna talk to you about throwing swim baits in the month of March, specifically targeting spotted bass on herring lakes. There's several of these around the country. Some of my favorites are Logan Martin, Lake Lanier, Smith Lake. So any of those spotted bass fisheries, any of those herring lakes, what I'm going to talk about today is going to apply to those style lakes. So throwing swim baits is one of my favorite things to do. And when I'm targeting spotted bass that are keyed in on herring, this is my favorite color swim bait to throw. This here is a Yum Scottsboro. This is the 4-inch. I like throwing a 3.5, a 4, even a 4.5. But this color right here is Sight Minnow. Now this is a new swim bait. In years past, I've found some other swim baits, but this one here has a nice flat surface, which makes the body kind of keeled. It keeps it going straight, doesn't want to tumble or roll over. And the color Sight Minnow, it's kind of creamy, clear white on the top, and then the bottom's clear with a bunch of glitter, sparkle, shine to it. So starting off with the rod and reel. I prefer a 3-powered rod. That's going to be your light, medium, heavy. This is a 7'3" Kistler KLX. I also love the Kistler Helium. They have a great Argon series. All three of those rods I would recommend and support. But 7'3", light, medium, heavy, that's the perfect for these medium to semi-large swim baits, but 3.5 is medium small, 4.5-inch swim bait. Either way, this is the rod. The reel is a 7.3 to 1. I'm always throwing it on anywhere between 12 and 15 pounds Seaguar and VisX fluorocarbon. I want my line to sink. I don't want it floating in these scenarios. The next most important tip to this is getting a good jig head. There's a couple of different jig heads I like. This is a J-Will jig head. It's a little bit bigger shank than the Boss swim bait head that I've told you guys about. That one's going to be a little smaller. So if I go down to a 3.5-inch or smaller, I'm going to use that Boss. If I'm going to be 3.5 or above, this is going to apply. It's a little bit bigger hook to match a little bit bigger swim bait. We're going to rig it up. Just like you do anything. There's no biting required in this. It sets in there nice. I'm going to try to kind of eyeball where I'm going to put the hook through. A good little tip is you can poke a little hole in the bait right there where you want it, so you see it lines up. It's going to come out right about there. I kind of put my thumb there. I come over right here and I put a little hole in it. Sorry, you didn't see that part. I put a little hole in it. That helps me mark where I'm going to come out. And then I'm just going to thread the bait on there as straight as possible. I'm going to come out my little hook hole. And then the next step that I do right before I slide it all on, I take some super gel Loctite and I put a little bit of super glue on the collar of this head, just kind of underneath the head, there and there. And then when I do that, I'm going to go ahead and do it actually. So I'm just going to apply a little bit there. I don't know if you can see that. Probably blurry. I'm going to put a little bit right there. And then when I slide that bait on, it's going to stay up there a lot longer. I'm going to get a lot more use out of that. It can handle the wear and tear of those mean spotted bass. And I'm going to catch several more fish on there. So I'm going to slide that all the way up, snug on the head. And that's your finished product. So we got our setup. We're headed out month of March, targeting these spotted bass that are keyed in on herring. They're also thinking about spawning right now. So there's a few different things I'm looking for, but first and foremost, I am looking for herring, because even if fish are thinking about spawning, there's still a group of fish that started out deeper that are still solely out there pre-spawn feeding up. And so herring is the #1 thing for me. So they're gonna feed and then they're gonna spawn. So the herring is gonna be the first step of that process every time, all the time. Also, spotted bass don't really care much about spawning. They just assume it didn't even happen. So feeding is priority to them over spawning, in my opinion. So you're gonna try to find the herring. You can do that using your Lowrance electronics, downsend, side scan, regular sonar. You're looking for bait balls. You can throw your active target over your trolling motor, look around, looking for those bait balls. You're gonna see these fish underneath them. Either on your 2D sonar, you're gonna see the fish relating to those bait balls, or on your active target, you're literally gonna see wolf packs of these spotted bass chasing this herring around. Where's the places that I look? I start out in the channels. I focus graphing the channels, looking for main lake points, secondary points. So from there I move inward. I start moving in closer to the bank. I've now found the herring either on that primary point or the secondary point or these channel swings or flats. I've found that. Now I'm going to start looking inward for the little nuances with sitting within the off the bank outcroppings of rock, big boulders, docks, dock cables, anything that offers that fish that next component for structure or a place to ambush. A lot of these fish are going to stay high in the water column, so I'm looking at deeper water, but I'm looking at things that are sitting higher in the column. So docks, dock cables, rocks that are really, really tall in deep water that give that fish something to retreat to. These fish are going to be suspended a lot because the herring are suspended and they're totally nomadic, but at the same time they like being able to relate to things if it's there. So look for that kind of stuff. Make long casts if you can. So if you've got this type of structure, if you're going to throw at a dock, make a long cast down the edge of that dock. They might relate to crossbars under these or these dock cables. And you're going to keep that swim bait a nice steady retrieve. I'm not twitching that swim bait. Once I get it down in the depth I think the fish are at, a lot of times that's only 3 to 8 foot deep, even though the water might be 40 or 50 foot. It's a slow, steady retrieve, and they're just going to thunk, and you set the hook and you get a hold of them, you bring them in the boat. There's really not much to complicate this deal. You just find a bait, you find a bass, and you cast it out there and reel it back slow. The Yum Scott Sparrow minnow. Get the 4-inch one and the sight minnow. Don't forget, lurenet.com is where you can go get it. Use my coupon code there. The price of the bait will be cheaper there than anywhere you can get it. Cordiana 15, then you get 15% off. So use that. It helps me. It helps you. I hope you guys go catch some big spotted bass on these herring lakes.
Hey guys, my swim bait tip I'm going to share with you is an area to target and actually a piece of cover to target. It is springtime, we have a lot of rain, lakes like to fluctuate, and when the lakes do go up and back down, one piece of cover that the bass will use and you can also use to throw these guys at is bushes. Flooded bushes is a great piece of cover to throw swim baits in. And guys, there is actually a little bit of an art to it. You need to have the right hook, as I have right here, a Gamakatsu. This is their spring loaded, I believe it's a tail spinner. Also, this is a 4 to 5/0 hook size. I got both of them in the boat, and having that swim bait covered up, that hook covered, and so you can throw this in those holes between the bushes, swimming around the edge, looking for them cuts. Man, it's an easy way to catch a lot of fish. And when I'm talking about this, I like to do this in highland reservoirs. You can do it in lowland reservoirs too, but your highland reservoirs where you're fishing pretty clean to the stained water. And guys, like I said, them fish will use them bushes as the lakes fluctuate. I like to look on the mouths of your coves, the mouths of your creeks, and as you fish your way back, you can catch them in the backs on the bushes as well, but those staging areas is really going to be your spot to throw the swim bait. The swim bait here I like to throw, and this is the Reaction Innovation Skinny Dipper. This is their Bad Shad Special. I also like the Bad Green Shad Special as well for them clear waters. And my rod that I'm going to use, I like to use I think mine's the Denali Attack 7.4 medium heavy. It's a swim bait frog rod. It's a mixed hybrid rod. You can use any size. Like I said, I've used 7.6 size rods before for these swim baits. Your line, you're going to want to have, since you're throwing it in that cover, you want to go and kind of have some heavier line. 14 to 16 pound is okay. Like I said, if you're fishing super clean water, you might need to go a little lighter, but you got to, some of them fish are going to be hitting them things in the bushes or on the side, and you're going to have to find a way to get them out. So heavier line is a key also. Put on your swim baits. Like I said, hey, go find them flooded bushes, throw this dude around the edges and up in them and in those cuts. And hey, like I said, when you go find a group of them, man, it is a blast and it's such a fun bite to go through.
Really quick, if you guys enjoy the content in this video and want more personalized instruction, head to our website, fishthemoment.com. Then go to the virtual lessons page. Here you can book one-on-one virtual lessons with each member of the Fish the Moment team. In these 1-hour lessons, the Fish the Moment team member will break down your lake using Google Earth and a contour line map and answer any questions you have. Whether you're preparing for an upcoming fishing tournament or a fun weekend on the lake, make sure you sign up for one of these one-on-one virtual lessons so you're fully prepared to catch as many fish as possible on the water. Check them out at fishthemoment.com.
We're going to be talking about how to retrieve your swim baits during the springtime of the year. This is going to be some detailed information, real specific, that'll help you guys get some more bites on swim baits in the springtime. Now, first of all, before we get into this, before you can really decide how to retrieve your swim bait, a lot of it has to do with a specific model of swim bait. So for today's purposes, we're going to be talking about the two types of swim baits. One would be the swim bait like the paddle tail swim bait, the larger ones like this Megabass Mag Draft, and the other ones would be like the more rib swim bait, the smaller ones like this Zoom Z Swim right here. So each one of these categories requires a different type of retrieve, so we'll get into that here. First of all, let's talk about the Z Swim. Now this is one of the most popular swim bait profiles there are out there. You know, the Kitech was made famous years ago. There's a lot of different rib swim baits like this. I'm going to say, guys, that these rib swim baits probably have accounted for more or as many bass caught the past 5 years by anglers out there. They're a tremendous lure category and they're very versatile. So in the springtime of the year, there's two different scenarios and two different ways that I retrieve this based upon your water clarity. If the water is got a little bit of off-colored stain to it, say for example, if you've got around that 2 to 3 foot visibility, which I consider sort of off-colored for a swim bait, I'll rig it, like I said, most of the time on a jig head, anywhere between a 1/8 to 1/4, depending upon the wind and how deep I'm fishing. But I am fishing it on an exposed jig head. If that water visibility is under 3 feet, I'm keeping that bait closer to the bottom. So I'll be fishing like secondary points, main lake points, that type of stuff, throwing it out there, letting it hit the bottom and just slowly sort of just winding along the bottom. And if I lose contact with the bottom a little bit, I may let it sink back down. I'm trying to just slowly crawl it with a steady retrieve just on the bottom or just off of the bottom. Now, if the water visibility is cleaner, say for example, you got 4 foot of visibility or so, in that scenario, you're going to have a combination of some suspended bass and a bass using the bottom based upon the time of day, mood and personality of the fish, the species of the bass, all that type of stuff. So if I have clear water, my retrieve is going to be a little bit different. Number one, it's going to be a little bit faster retrieve. The cleaner water, the bass are going to key on that bait more visually, and a lot of times by retrieving that swim bait a little bit faster, you're going to trigger that reaction strike. Not only faster, but with a stop and go retrieve. So I'll throw it out there, and based upon if I think the fish are suspended or not, if they're suspended, I'll count it down to like the depth where I'm seeing a lot of activity in my electronics. If I don't see much and I want to fish it on the structure on the bottom, let it sink to the bottom. But regardless, once it hits the bottom out there, I begin to retrieve, just sort of a medium retrieve, and then I'll stop my reel handle. I'll just stop it and start it, stop it and start it. Or am I spinning? I'll just reel it, stop it, start it, stop it, start it. Try to keep that swim bait, just sort of moving through the water just like that, just a little bit of an erratic retrieve. And that seems to work pretty good for me in those situations like that. One other thing that you can do is if you are in an area where you think that you're around a lot of fish, say for example, you've casted on this point, you've caught 1 or 2 fish with that retrieve. The next time you cast out there, guys, throw it out and get your retrieve about halfway back to the boat, and all of a sudden just snap your rod real hard, just pop it real hard like that. And I found if you've got bass in the area, sometime that hard snap will trigger that reaction strike. I do the same thing with jerkbait sometimes. So that's with the rib type swim baits, I like the Z Swim. Now for the larger swim baits like this, for like the Megabass Mag Draft and the bigger profile swim baits like this, for me, it's all about just a slow, steady retrieve. So I'm not concentrating when I'm fishing the Mag Draft and these style of swim baits like here, I don't fish the bottom with this. I'm fishing this bait either high in the water column or in the mid-depth water column. It's not designed to be fished on the bottom. And both of those retrieves, I'll throw it out there and just use a medium, steady retrieves. Medium to slow, steady retrieve. Once in a while, I'll hesitate my reel hand a little bit and bring it up there. But the main thing is on this type of a situation, the bait is so big, you just want to let the tail do the work for you. And on the Mag Draft here, you actually have the head will wiggle a little bit on the top as well as the tail. So I'm not really doing much with that. But that's the basic retrieves on that. One other thing I'll leave you with retrieves on swim baits, guys, in the springtime of the year, is sometimes you just have to experiment because the mood and the behavior and the personality of the bass changes day by day. It changes with environmental conditions. It changes with wind, light intensity, water visibility, and just the overall, mood of the fish. So if you're not getting bit and you think there's some bass in the area, just experiment. Just use your creativity and experiment with a variety of retrieves until you hit upon the right one. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see y'all next time.
Appreciate you guys watching today's video. Let us know what you think. Leave us a comment. Don't forget to hit subscribe for us as well. Hey, and we'll see you next time.